Chestnut Grove, a picturesque town nestled between snow-covered hills, came alive with the promise of the holiday season. The air was crisp, and the smell of pine lingered as the townsfolk prepared for the grand Christmas display at the local mall. Frank Collins, a man with a turbulent past, found himself reluctantly donning the iconic red suit to play the role of the mall Santa. As Frank adjusted his fake white beard and adjusted the buckle on his black boots, a shiver ran down his spine. The festive decorations seemed to mock his uneasy conscience, and the twinkling lights overhead cast eerie shadows on the walls. He could almost hear the faint jingling of bells, a haunting prelude to the ghostly knells that would follow. "Hey, Frank, you okay there?" asked Maria, the mall manager, as she eyed him with concern. Her cheerful demeanor clashed with the tension that hung in the air. Yeah, just feeling a bit under the weather," Frank replied, forcing a smile that didn't reach his troubled eyes. Maria nodded, unconvinced, and patted him on the back before bustling away to attend to other holiday preparations. The mall's corridors echoed with the laughter of children, each step Frank took amplifying the ominous whispers that seemed to coil around him like unseen serpents. The Santa's workshop display, once a symbol of joy, now appeared as a sinister gateway to a world he couldn't escape. Amid the cheerful chaos, Frank caught sight of Tommy, a mischievous 10-year-old who had a penchant for trouble. Tommy's eyes lit up with excitement as he approached Santa's throne. "Hey there, Santa. I want a drone this Christmas, and a really cool one, okay?" Tommy declared, his enthusiasm masking the shadow of fear that danced in his eyes. Frank, momentarily distracted from his own unease, chuckled and said, "Well, Tommy, I'll see what I can do. But you better be on your best behavior, or you might end up with a lump of coal." The child's laughter resonated through the mall, momentarily dispelling the eerie atmosphere. Frank couldn't help but wonder if the darkness that clung to him would taint the innocence of the children he was meant to bring joy to. As the day wore on, the mall Santa's unease deepened. Each child that perched on his lap left with a subtle change in demeanor, a flicker of unease in their eyes, a hesitancy in their smiles. Frank felt the weight of their unspoken fears, a burden that grew with every whispered encounter with the shadowy presence. In the late afternoon, as the winter sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the mall, Frank noticed a peculiar figure in the distance. A man, clad in a tattered overcoat, stood in the corner of Santa's workshop, his face obscured by the darkness. "Hey, who are you?" Frank called out, his voice echoing through the emptying mall. No response. The mysterious figure remained silent, a mere silhouette against the backdrop of twinkling lights. As Frank approached, a chill settled in the air, and the flickering lights seemed to dance to an otherworldly rhythm. "You lost, buddy," Frank pressed, his unease transforming into a low hum of anxiety. The figure finally turned, revealing hollow eyes that gleamed with an otherworldly malevolence. A haunting laughter echoed, and Frank felt a presence, a shadowy force that reached into the recesses of his troubled soul. Jingle bells mingled with ghostly knells, signaling the beginning of a holiday season marred by a darkness that refused to be ignored. As the mysterious figure vanished into the shadows, Frank knew that the ghost of his own past had come back to haunt him, and the town of Chestnut Grove was about to face a Christmas unlike any other. The mall continued its festive facade, but beneath the glittering lights, a growing unease gripped Chestnut Grove. Frank Collins, the mall Santa with a shadow past, could no longer dismiss the eerie occurrences surrounding him. Children, once brimming with holiday excitement, left his lap with a subtle dread lingering in their eyes. Frank adjusted his Santa hat, the discomfort evident on his face. The mall, once a haven of joy, now seemed like a battleground between the festive spirit and an unseen malevolence. The decorations, once vibrant and cheerful, cast ominous shadows that seemed to writhe with a life of their own. As Frank greeted the next child in line, a little girl named Emily, he couldn't ignore the palpable tension in the air. Emily's eyes, wide with innocence, met Frank's, and for a moment he saw a reflection of his own disquiet. "Santa, I want a dollhouse for Christmas," Emily whispered, her voice barely audible over the distant hum of holiday music. Frank, masking his own unease, replied, "A dollhouse it is, Emily, but you promised to be good, okay?" Emily nodded, but the usual sparkle in her eyes was replaced by a flicker of uncertainty. Frank couldn't shake the feeling that something sinister was weaving its way through the fabric of the holiday season, affecting the children who crossed his path. In a quiet corner of the mall, two mothers, Susan and Rachel, exchanged worried glances as they observed their children's interactions with Santa. "Rachel, do you notice anything strange about this Santa this year?" Susan asked, her voice hushed as if afraid to speak too loudly. Rachel, her brow furrowed, replied, "I thought it was just me. But there's something off. I can't put my finger on it, but it's like a chill in the air." Their conversation was interrupted by the sound of a child's cry. Turning towards the commotion, they saw Tommy, the mischievous boy from the day before, trembling with fear. Santa scared me," Tommy stammered as his mother rushed to comfort him. Frank, taken aback by the outburst, tried to console the distressed child. "Hey Tommy, what happened? I didn't mean to scare you." But Tommy, usually full of bravado, could only manage to point towards the empty space beside Santa's throne. "I saw a shadow, Mom, a scary shadow." The mothers exchanged concerned glances, realizing that their children's fears were not unfounded. The unsettling incidents were not confined to individual experiences, but had woven a tapestry of dread that now hung over the entire mall. Frank, troubled by the child's revelation, felt a chill crawl down his spine. The shadow that had haunted his own past seemed to be manifesting itself in ways beyond his control. The once jolly Santa found himself caught in a web of fear and uncertainty, the weight of the town's innocence resting heavily on his shoulders. As the day progressed, the incidents multiplied. Toys misplaced, whispers of unsettling dreams, and an underlying anxiety that pervaded the atmosphere. The malevolent force seemed to feed on the vulnerability of the children, casting a dark pall over the holiday cheer. That evening, as Frank removed his Santa suit in the dimly lit dressing room, he caught a glimpse of the figure in the tattered overcoat from the corner of his eye. The hollow eyes bore into his soul, and a haunting laughter echoed, leaving no doubt that the malevolent force was not a figment of his imagination. The lap of dread had begun, and as the shadows deepened, Frank knew that the battle for the town's innocence was far from over. The ghostly knells grew louder, signaling a holiday season descending into a nightmarish symphony of fear. The mall Santa, Frank Collins, found himself ensnared in a sinister dance between the past and present. Haunted by his own sins, he embarked on a journey into the ghosts of Christmas past, hoping to unravel the mysteries that clung to the malevolent force threatening the town of Chestnut Grove. Late at night, Frank sat alone in his dimly lit apartment, surrounded by the muted glow of Christmas lights. The air hung heavy with a sense of foreboding. The memories he had buried deep within his soul clawed their way to the surface, demanding acknowledgement. His fingers traced the edges of an old photograph, a sepia-toned snapshot of a family that once knew joy. The shadowy presence that haunted him seemed to draw strength from the fractured relationships, the mistakes that lingered in the corners of his memories. In a nearby chair, the flickering flame of a single candle cast dancing shadows on the walls. Frank's breath caught as he closed his eyes, attempting to confront the demons that lurked within. A spectral voice echoed in his mind, whispering accusations and dredging up moments he wished were forgotten. The room seemed to pulse with the weight of guilt, and as the shadows lengthened, Frank's past unfolded like a macabre storybook. In a small town on the outskirts of Chestnut Grove, Frank was once a father, a husband, and the epitome of holiday cheer. The Christmas tree adorned with baubles, the laughter of his children, the warmth of family gathered around the hearth. These were the memories that now morphed into haunting visions. As the images flickered in his mind, a knock on the door shattered the oppressive silence. Startled, Frank opened the door to find Maria, the mall manager, standing in the hallway. "Frank, you've been acting strange lately. Is everything okay?" Maria asked, her concern etched across her face. Frank hesitated before inviting her in. The apartment seemed to hold its breath as Maria took in the flickering candlelight and the weight of Frank's troubled gaze. "Maria, I can't shake the feeling that I brought something dark into this town," Frank confessed, his voice strained with remorse. Maria, choosing her words carefully, replied, "We all have skeletons in our closets, Frank, but this feels different. Have you tried talking to someone about it?" The mall Santa, once a beacon of holiday merriment, found himself baring his soul to Maria. He recounted the choices that led him astray, the fractures in his family, and the haunting laughter of the malevolent force that now echoed in his ears. "I need to understand what this is, Maria. I need to face my past and find a way to protect the children," Frank declared, a newfound determination in his eyes. Together, they delved into the town's history, seeking answers in the faded pages of old newspapers and the hushed whispers of longtime residents. Mrs. Henderson, the oldest resident in Chestnut Grove, became an unexpected source of wisdom. In her quaint living room, adorned with decades-old Christmas decorations, Mrs. Henderson spoke of a long-forgotten legend. The town had been built upon a tapestry of joy and sorrow, and the malevolent force that now gripped the children had its roots in the mistakes of the past. "The Whispering Pines," Mrs. Henderson began, her eyes clouded with the weight of years gone by. "It's a spectral forest that only appears during the holiday season. Legend has it that it houses a gateway to the spirit realm, and a tainted soul can unleash a darkness that devours innocence." As the old woman spoke, the malevolent force seemed to coil around them, as if eavesdropping on the revelation. The room chilled, and the shadows danced in unsettling patterns. Frank, resolute in his quest for redemption, knew that the answers lay within the Whispering Pines. The ghosts of Christmas past had paved the way for a malevolent force, and now it was up to him to confront the sins that lurked in the shadows. The holiday season, once a time of joy, now bore the weight of a town's redemption. Chestnut Grove, now gripped by a malevolent force that whispered of ancient sins, stood at the precipice of the unknown. Frank Collins, the mall Santa haunted by his past, embarked on a quest into the Whispering Pines, seeking answers to the spectral presence that had cast a pall over the holiday season. The Whispering Pines, a spectral forest veiled in mystery, loomed on the outskirts of town. Frank, guided by the chilling tales of Mrs. Henderson, ventured into the darkened woods, the air thick with an otherworldly presence. As he navigated the twisted paths, the towering pines seemed to come alive with ethereal whispers. The wind carried the distant echoes of holiday carols, distorted into ghostly refrains. The forest floor, carpeted with a layer of frost, crunched beneath Frank's boots as he pushed deeper into the heart of the enigmatic woodland. The malevolent force, sensing an intruder in its domain, sent shivers through the Whispering Pines. Shadows danced on the periphery of Frank's vision, and the air grew colder with every step. The once jolly Santa felt the weight of the town's innocence resting heavily on his shoulders. A distant, haunting laughter echoed through the trees, and Frank's pace quickened. He knew that the malevolent force, entwined with his own past, lurked in the shadows, waiting to be confronted. In the silence that followed, a ghostly figure materialized before him, a spectral manifestation of Frank's younger self. The boy, with innocent eyes tainted by the sins of his adult counterpart, pointed towards a clearing ahead. "Face your past, Frank," the ghostly figure whispered, its voice a mournful echo of the laughter that haunted him. Entering the clearing, Frank discovered an ancient altar, its stone surface etched with long-forgotten symbols. Symbols that hinted at a power beyond human understanding. The malevolent force seemed to pulse from the very heart of the Whispering Pines, and the air crackled with an ominous energy. As Frank examined the altar, the spectral figure of his wife appeared, her eyes filled with reproach. "You let darkness into our lives, Frank. You let it fester until it consumed everything," she accused, her voice a bitter reminder of the choices that led to their undoing. "I'm sorry," Frank whispered, his breath forming frosty clouds in the frigid air. "You must seal the gateway, Frank," the ghostly apparition urged. "Only then can the town be free from the shadows you brought upon it." Determined, Frank traced the symbols on the ancient altar, his fingers trembling with a mixture of fear and resolve. The malevolent force, now a swirling vortex of darkness, fought against his attempts to seal the gateway. The whispering pines echoed with the sounds of an otherworldly struggle, and the very fabric of reality seemed to warp and bend. In the heart of the struggle, Maria appeared, her presence a beacon of support. "You're not alone in this, Frank," she declared, standing by his side. Together, they chanted the words etched on the altar, a rhythmic incantation that resonated with the echoes of forgotten spirits. The malevolent force thrashed and wailed, but gradually the whispers in the wind softened and the shadows receded. The whispering pines, once a gateway to darkness, now echoed with the fading sounds of ethereal carols. The malevolent force, weakened and confined, retreated into the depths of the spectral forest. As the last vestiges of the struggle subsided, Frank and Maria stood in a clearing, the weight of their shared ordeal hanging in the air. The whispering pines, once a realm of shadows, now stood as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. "We did it," Maria said, her voice a hushed acknowledgement of the triumph over the darkness. The whispering pines, now bathed in the soft glow of moonlight, seemed to sigh with relief. The malevolent force, banished from the town, left behind a newfound sense of hope. Frank, having faced the ghosts of his past, embraced the redemption he had long sought. But as they turned to leave the spectral forest, a distant laughter lingered in the air, a reminder that the whispering pines, though pacified, held secrets that transcended the boundaries of time and space. The town of Chestnut Grove, free from the grip of malevolence, could now begin the arduous journey of healing and rebuilding. The night settled over Chestnut Grove like a heavy blanket, casting a hushed silence upon the town. The once jovial holiday atmosphere had given way to an eerie stillness, as if the very air held its breath in the aftermath of the Whispering Pines ordeal. Frank Collins, the mall Santa turned reluctant hero, knew that the battle against the malevolent force was far from over. In the quiet streets, the townsfolk cautiously emerged from their homes, their eyes betraying a mixture of relief and trepidation. The mall, once a bustling center of holiday cheer, stood like a silent sentinel, bearing witness to the struggles that had unfolded within its walls. Frank, carrying the weight of the town's redemption, patrolled the empty corridors of the mall alongside Maria, the mall manager who had become an unexpected ally. "Frank, do you really think it's over?" Maria asked, her voice a fragile whisper in the cavernous space. "I don't know, Maria. The whispering pines may be pacified, but that laughter, that malevolence, it's still out there," Frank replied, his eyes scanning the shadows for any signs of lingering darkness. As they approached the Santa's workshop display, a murmur of hesitant voices reached their ears. Parents, accompanied by their children, tentatively entered the once haunted space. The children, eyes wide with a mixture of curiosity and lingering fear, hesitated before approaching Santa's throne. Frank, wearing the Santa suit with newfound gravitas, felt the weight of the children's gaze. It was a silent acknowledgement of the shared ordeal, a recognition that innocence had been tarnished, but not irreparably lost. "Santa, are you still haunted?" asked Tommy, the mischievous boy who had faced the malevolent force head-on. Frank, his eyes softened with empathy, replied, "We all carry ghosts, Tommy, but sometimes facing them is the only way to find peace." Tommy, reassured by Santa's words, mustered a small smile. The parents exchanged grateful glances, their children's tentative steps towards redemption reflected in the faint flicker of holiday lights. As the night deepened, a sense of normalcy crept back into Chestnut Grove. The townsfolk, though scared by the recent events, began to rebuild the fractured tapestry of holiday spirit. Frank and Maria, determined to ensure the malevolent force remained contained, continued their vigilance. In the distance, the whispering pines stood as silent sentinels, their branches whispering secrets to the night wind. Frank couldn't shake the feeling that the shadows, though temporarily subdued, were biding their time. The malevolence that had woven its way into the town's fabric lingered like a stubborn stain, threatening to resurface when least expected. In a quiet corner of the mall, Susan and Rachel, the concerned mothers who had witnessed their children's encounters with the malevolent force, engaged in a hushed conversation. "Rachel, do you think it's really over?" Susan asked, her eyes searching for reassurance in her friend's gaze. I want to believe it is, Susan. But something tells me that we're just at the beginning of this haunting journey, Rachel replied, her voice tinged with a mixture of hope and lingering dread. Unknown to them, a faint laughter echoed in the background, carried by the wind that whispered through the silent night. The malevolent force, weakened but not defeated, watched from the shadows, waiting for an opportunity to claw its way back into the hearts of the unsuspecting. As the town slept under the watchful gaze of a crescent moon, Frank Collins felt a sense of foreboding. The battle against the shadows had left scars on the town and on his own soul. The whispering pines, though temporarily subdued, held secrets that refused to be silenced. In the darkness, a solitary figure moved through the deserted mall corridors, a flicker of shadow that lingered on the edge of perception. The malevolent force, regaining strength with each passing moment, prepared for a resurgence that would test the resilience of Chestnut Grove once more. The night remained silent, haunted by the echoes of a recent struggle, and as the first light of dawn approached, the town of Chestnut Grove braced itself for a new day, uncertain of the malevolent force that lingered in the shadows. The battle for the town's soul had only just begun. In the wake of the Whispering Pines ordeal, Chestnut Grove attempted to return to normalcy, but the specter of the malevolent force lingered like an uninvited guest. Frank Collins, the mall Santa burdened by a haunted past, felt a sense of urgency as he grappled with the unsettling knowledge that the shadows were regaining strength. The town, adorned with twinkling lights and tinsel, bore the scars of its recent struggle. Parents hesitated to bring their children to the mall, unsure if the festive displays harbored hidden dangers. Frank, his once jolly demeanor now tempered by the weight of responsibility, patrolled the corridors with a vigilance that mirrored the silent anxiety enveloping the town. Late one evening, as the last echoes of closing time reverberated through the empty mall, Frank found himself drawn to the Santa's workshop display. The festive decorations, once symbols of joy, now seemed to mock him with their artificial cheer. The haunting laughter, a distant memory, echoed in the recesses of his mind. Maria, her steps echoing through the deserted mall, approached Frank with a mixture of concern and determination. Frank, we can't pretend that everything is fine. The malevolent force is still here, and we need to confront it before it devours the town. Frank nodded, his eyes reflecting the gravity of the situation. We need to find the source of the darkness, Maria. The Whispering Pines might be pacified, but something else is fueling this malevolence. Together, they delved into the town's history, consulting old records and seeking the counsel of Mrs. Henderson. The town's oldest resident, her eyes clouded with years of accumulated wisdom, spoke of an ancient artifact known as the Yuletide relic. According to the legend, the relic was a conduit for dark forces, and its malevolent power could be harnessed to wreak havoc upon the innocent. Determined to prevent the Yuletide relic from falling into the wrong hands, Frank and Maria ventured into the Whispering Pines once more. The spectral forest, though subdued, seemed to pulse with an anticipatory energy, as if aware of the impending reckoning. As they navigated the moonlit paths, Frank's mind echoed with the haunting laughter that had become synonymous with the malevolent force. The shadows, ever watchful, seemed to gather in ominous formations, and the very air thrummed with an otherworldly resonance. I can't believe we're doing this, Maria admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. But if this relic is the key to stopping the darkness, we have to find it. The clearing where Frank had faced the malevolent force before now bore an eerie stillness. In the center, an ancient altar similar to the one in the Whispering Pines stood, its surface etched with cryptic symbols. The Yuletide relic, a small but ominous object, lay nestled in the center. As Frank reached for the relic, a voice echoed through the forest, a disembodied whisper that sent shivers down their spines. You seek to defy the shadows, but the darkness cannot be vanquished so easily. The ghostly figures of Frank's past, his wife, and the younger version of himself materialized, their eyes filled with a haunting reproach. The malevolent force, leveraging the Yuletide relic, sought to use Frank's guilt and regrets against him. You thought you could escape the consequences of your actions, the voices echoed, intertwining with the ominous laughter. But the darkness within you feeds the shadows that now consume this town. Determined to break free from the suffocating grasp of guilt, Frank stood his ground. I won't let the mistakes of my past dictate the future of this town. I'll face the darkness within me and rid Chestnut Grove of this malevolent force. As he uttered those words, the Yuletide relic trembled in his hands, its dark energy resonating with Frank's newfound resolve. The forest, sensing the shifting balance, seemed to hold its breath. In a climactic struggle, Frank harnessed the relic's dark power, redirecting it towards the malevolent force that sought to manipulate him. The ghostly apparitions wailed, their forms dissolving into the shadows that now recoiled from the Yuletide relic's counterforce. The whispering pines, once a realm with shadows, echoed with the fading sounds of a spectral struggle. Frank, drained but victorious, clutched the Yuletide relic in his hands. The malevolent force, weakened and dispersed, retreated into the depths of the spectral forest, leaving behind a town forever changed by the Yuletide reckoning. As Frank and Maria emerged from the whispering pines, the night air felt different, lighter, as if a weight had been lifted. The town, no longer haunted by the malevolent force, slowly began to reclaim its festive spirit. Yet, in the shadows of the whispering pines, a distant laughter lingered, a reminder that the battle against darkness was ongoing and Chestnut Grove would need to remain vigilant in the face of the spectral forces that lingered just beyond the edge of perception. In the aftermath of the Yuletide reckoning, Chestnut Grove awoke to a dawn tinged with both relief and trepidation. The malevolent force that had cast a shadow over the town had been quelled, but echoes of the recent struggle lingered in the collective consciousness. Frank Collins, the once tormented mall Santa, felt a newfound sense of purpose as he grappled with the aftermath of the Yuletide relic's power. As the town gradually embraced the return of holiday cheer, Frank found solace in the small moments of normalcy. Children, their innocence restored, approached Santa's workshop with renewed enthusiasm. The mall, though still marked by the recent turmoil, echoed with the laughter of families determined to reclaim the spirit of the season. In the quiet moments between holiday shoppers, Frank and Maria found themselves reflecting on the recent events. The mall manager, her eyes reflecting a mixture of exhaustion and determination, approached Frank with a hesitant smile. "You did it, Frank. The town owes you a debt of gratitude," Maria said, her voice carrying the weight of the recent struggle. Frank, though humbled by the sentiment, couldn't shake the lingering doubts that gnawed at the edges of his consciousness. "We may have quelled the darkness, Maria, but I can't shake the feeling that it's still out there, waiting for an opportunity to return." Maria placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "We'll face whatever comes together. Frank, the town is stronger now, and so are you." Determined to confront the residual shadows of his past, Frank delved into the heart of Chestnut Grove. He visited the families affected by the recent events, offering words of reassurance and hope. The children, once plagued by nightmares, now found solace in the presence of a Santa who had faced the darkness head-on. Tommy, the mischievous boy who had been the first to experience the malevolent force, approached Frank with a hesitant grin. "Thanks, Santa. I don't have those scary dreams anymore." Frank ruffled Tommy's hair, a genuine smile gracing his features. "You're welcome, Tommy. Remember, the real power of the season lies in the light we find within ourselves." The town's collective healing process extended beyond the mall's confines. Susan and Rachel, the concerned mothers who had witnessed their children's struggles, found solace in each other's company. "I never thought we'd go through something like this," Susan admitted, her eyes reflecting the resilience born of adversity. Rachel nodded, her gaze focused on the town square adorned with twinkling lights. "But look around, Susan. The town is finding its way back to the light, and so are we." In the heart of Chestnut Grove, a communal sense of resilience emerged. The townsfolk, once divided by fear, came together to celebrate the triumph over darkness. The whispering pines, though forever marked by the recent events, stood as a testament to the strength of the human spirit. As Christmas Eve approached, the town square transformed into a haven of festive joy. Carolers sang in harmony, and the air was filled with the scent of hot cocoa and evergreen. Frank, dressed in his Santa suit, stood at the center of the celebration, his heart buoyed by the sight of a town determined to reclaim its holiday spirit. Yet, in the quiet moments beneath the twinkling lights, Frank felt a lingering unease. The malevolent force, though temporarily subdued, left behind a haunting legacy. The shadows, he realized, were not merely external entities but reflections of the internal struggles that defined a human experience. Alone in the dimly lit Santa's workshop, Frank grappled with the weight of his own past. The ghosts that had tormented him for so long seemed to hover in the shadows, their presence a reminder that redemption was an ongoing journey. Mrs. Henderson, the town's sage, approached Frank with a knowing smile. The darkness may linger, but so does the light within you, Frank. Embrace it, and the shadows will never consume you again. As the clock struck midnight on Christmas Eve, Chestnut Grove fell into a serene stillness. The town, now a tapestry woven with threads of resilience and hope, slept beneath a blanket of snow. Frank, standing in the quiet mall, felt a sense of closure. The Yuletide reckoning had tested the limits of the town's spirit, but the light within had prevailed. The whispering pines, once a source of dread, now whispered secrets of a town reborn. Frank, the mall Santa turned harbinger of hope, embraced the quietude of the night. The malevolent force, relegated to the shadows, awaited its next opportunity, but for now Chestnut Grove reveled in the triumph of the light within. Christmas morning dawned on Chestnut Grove with a newfound warmth, dispelling the remnants of the malevolent force that had haunted the town. The air was filled with the scent of freshly fallen snow, and the town square, once a battleground of shadows, transformed into a haven of festive delight. Frank Collins, the mall Santa who had faced the darkness within and without, felt a sense of fulfillment as he witnessed the town's collective embrace of the holiday spirit. As the sun cast a golden glow on the snow-covered rooftops, families gathered around Christmas trees adorned with baubles and lights. Children unwrapped presents with gleeful anticipation, their laughter echoing through the streets. The town, having weathered the storm of malevolence, reveled in the simple joys that defined the holiday season. Frank, adorned in his Santa suit, strolled through the town square, exchanging cheerful greetings with the townsfolk. The whispering pines, though still a looming presence on the outskirts, seemed to watch over the festivities with a benign tranquility. Frank approached Susan and Rachel, who were sipping hot cocoa near the giant Christmas tree. "Looks like the town has found its way back to joy," Susan remarked, her eyes reflecting the genuine happiness that had eluded them during the recent trials. Rachel nodded, her gaze fixed on her children as they played in the snow. "It's a Christmas miracle, Frank. We never thought we'd see the day when the shadows lifted." Frank smiled, a twinkle of merriment in his eyes. Sometimes the darkest nights pave the way for the brightest mornings. Chestnut Grove has shown its resilience, and I have a feeling this Christmas will be one to remember. As the day unfolded, the townsfolk embraced the festivities with an eagerness that transcended the recent struggles. The mall, once a battleground of spectral forces, became a hub of holiday cheer. Frank, with a twirl of his white-bearded chin, greeted children eager to share their Christmas wishes. Tommy, the mischievous boy who had faced the malevolent force with unwavering courage, approached Frank with a wide grin. "Santa, I got the drone I wanted. It's the coolest one ever." Frank chuckled, patting Tommy on the shoulder. "I knew you had it in you to face the shadows, Tommy. May that drone bring you lots of joy and adventure." The town square came alive with the sounds of carolers singing classic tunes. The community choir, their voices harmonizing in a melody of jubilation, brought an air of unity to the festive scene. Frank, drawn to the familiar tunes, joined in the singing, his deep voice resonating with the spirit of the season. Maria, the mall manager who had stood by Frank through the trials, approached with a cup of steaming cider. "To a Christmas we won't soon forget," she toasted, her eyes sparkling with gratitude. Frank clanked his cup against hers, savoring the warmth of the cider. "To the light within us all, and the resilience of Chestnut Grove." As the day progressed, the town square transformed into a winter wonderland. Ice skaters glided gracefully on the frozen pond, and the aroma of roasted chestnuts wafted through the air. Families, once hesitant to venture into the heart of the festivities, now reveled in the joy that permeated the town. In the quiet moments between the celebrations, Frank found himself standing near the whispering pines. The spectral forest, though still veiled in an air of mystery, no longer held the malevolent force that had threatened to consume the town. Frank's gaze lingered on the darkened branches, contemplating the enduring dance between light and shadow. Mrs. Henderson, the wise elder of Chestnut Grove, approached Frank with a knowing smile. The whispering pines have seen many Christmases, Frank. They've watched the town weather storms and emerge stronger. You've played a crucial role in this year's tale of resilience. Frank nodded, a sense of fulfillment settling within him. The shadows may return, Mrs. Henderson, but as long as the town holds onto the light within, I believe Chestnut Grove can face anything. As the day transitioned into evening, the townsfolk gathered in the town square for the grand Christmas tree lighting. Frank, surrounded by the joyous faces of children and adults alike, felt a surge of gratitude. The whispering pines, bathed in the soft glow of holiday lights, stood as a silent testament to the enduring spirit of Chestnut Grove. In unison, the town counted down to the magical moment. As the switch was flipped, the Christmas tree illuminated the night with a dazzling display of colors. The cheers of the townsfolk resonated through the air, merging with the timeless whispers of the whispering pines. Tidings of joy enveloped Chestnut Grove, and as the snowflakes gently descended, the town embraced the magic of the season. Frank, the mall Santa turned harbinger of hope, watched the festivities unfold with a heart brimming with gratitude. The shadows may cast their fleeting spells, but the light within the townsfolk, ignited by the trials they had faced, burned brighter than ever before.